Thanks for joining me today. Well, welcome to today's webinar, Different Formats for Vacation Bible School. We're going to walk through today 6 different formats for your VBS. The goal for today is for you to learn how to format your church's VBS in a way that best fits your church's needs and concerns. For each option, we're going to outline possible schedules and opportunities to incorporate different programming. As we walk through these options, I hope that you can imagine your future VBS and how it can apply these frameworks. Before we jump in, my name is David Beck and I am an Associate Marketing Manager at CPH. Please reach out if you have any questions by emailing me at the email that you see on the screen there. If you have any questions about what we've covered today or about anything about VBS in general. Also, feel free to ask any questions that you might have in the question box here through the webinar software. I'll be sure there'll be a short time for some questions and answers at the end of the presentation. All right, so here is an overview of today's webinar. First, we're going to talk through some important things to consider when planning your VBS. Then we're going to discuss the base model overview, which is the traditional 3-hour program. That also includes some options for early childhood. And then we're going to discuss 5 additional models that could be a great fit for your church this upcoming year. And those include the 1-day, weekend, a day camp option, summer school, or summer Sunday school, and then the mixed age group option. So something important to note before we get into those two is that with any of these suggested formats, the lessons, we recommend that the lessons stay the same. So the emphasis on scripture, storytelling, and the gospel should still remain. So the first question I want to put towards you guys is what fits your VBS? So some VBS directors can move around rotation schedules to add a music site or other specific activities. Others take away sites because they have less time on their hands, especially for an evening program. So when we are going through all these options, feel free to make adjustments to meet your program's needs. If you do end up adding a site to your VBS, you're going to be adding about 25 minutes of time to the schedule. And if you remove a site, likewise, you're going to be removing about 25 minutes of programming. So in a minute here, I'm going to outline towards the end of the presentation a mixed age group option, which has some great benefits. Before we dive in that, I want to mention that I think overall we would recommend letting the young children learn in their own settings and rotations if you have the volunteers and the space to facilitate it. But it of course, could be a very necessary practical decision that makes sense for your church as well to put them together. But keeping those young children separate from your elementary age kids has some significant benefits, especially VBS, how it could be a young child's first classroom experience, and both parents and children may feel a bit anxious, timid, or afraid in the midst of a chaotic, typical VBS week. So that early childhood section can really give those young children a separate learning experience for age-appropriate activities in a quieter environment. And then, but that being said, no one knows your kids and your church better than you do. So having that mixed age group option might be a better option. And these situations often work well when kids know one another from other settings. Older kids often enjoy helping younger kids, and but we'll talk further in a minute. That's just something to keep on your mind because that's kind of an overarching question while we go through the different formats. Another thing to consider is how to incorporate youth into your VBS. In our experience, we found that youth really like VBS and they want to help. And you can find some really meaningful ways to involve the youth of your congregation as leaders and helpers into your VBS. There are many roles for youth at every site, and having that youthful enthusiasm paired with a mature adult leader can make for some really great teams. Youth leaders also are examples in attitude, behavior, and faith for those younger kids, and having youth serve as volunteers and encourage them even to bring their friends along could provide a great boost to your VBS program. Another thing to consider before we jump into the specific formats is when choosing dates for VBS, we have a few big things to consider. So the first thing is church staff availability. We think that it's very important that your pastor and other staff members have a lot of visibility with the children. Consider school schedules, community conflicts, so other things that are going on at different churches or schools, weather concerns, some new program invitations. So I would recommend scheduling VBS about a month before your fall programming kicks off. You should be considering work and childcare needs, even considering providing an all-day program or free transportation or nursery care for young families, young volunteers. But overall, choose options that best fit the needs of your congregation and the children and families you are hoping will attend. Another thing to consider is your space and your facility. That will most likely inform many of your decisions. I would recommend thinking through some of the space plans that I'm going to show you on the following slides, and then sketching your own facility out maybe after the webinar, and thinking through how different sites or different programs that we're going to go through would fit into your situation. This could really help you visualize that and then craft your own schedule. And then finally, as we discuss the various formats, keep in mind how you would incorporate decorating or different components of helping the theme be really well represented throughout your VBS. So if you're visualizing having a weekend retreat VBS at a summer camp facility, maybe, for example, you'd be thinking how you would decorate that campground area, the cabins. Or if you're drawn to the one-day VBS, how would you change how you decorate your space compared to the normal 3-day morning VBS pattern? All right, so let's jump in. This is the first format, the traditional base model site rotation. And the graphic you see on your screen there highlights a recommended schedule. So kids will move from site to site while your site leaders stay stationed at each site. And with this, we would recommend, you see this reflected in the schedule, about 5 to 10 minutes for rotating between each of these sites. And you can see there the standard opening, storytelling, Bible challenge, or any type of activity you could plug in there. Snacks, crafts, games, and then the closing for the day. Here is our recommended setup for a base model for a small church. If your church has fewer than 50 kids in your VBS, this site rotation model is a great fit for your needs. Here are some more overarching general ideas also to keep in consideration. Maybe you would like to separate children into same age groups and rotate them through different activities. Another thing, I alluded to it earlier, but maybe you want to separate and have a different rotation for the early childhood. If so, plan for separate and shared spaces for both early childhood and elementary programs. Use maybe one larger room with clearly marked sites, or put rotation sites in separate, smaller rooms. Another thing that you could consider is keeping all the children together for some activities and then dividing them up into groups for other ones, depending on volunteers or how many kids you have, your facility needs. Another thing you can consider is keeping everyone together in one space, and then each site activity happens only once, so the leaders can do more than one task, especially if you have limited volunteers. So one person can lead multiple components according to his or her interest or skills, and then other adults and teens act as small group leaders, media operators, music leaders, action demonstrators, snack makers, or craft helpers. And this on-the-job training, where you're training those new volunteers or youth maybe, will help prepare them for larger roles down the road. Here is a recommended setup for a large church. You can see that we've duplicated some rotation sites, especially for storytelling and some of those Bible activities, because just the amount of children. And depending on your facility, your snack, games, and craft areas could possibly have several groups as well. Here is a base model option for early childhood, taking into account that it's a little trickier for those little kids to move from site to site. The kids will only rotate 3 sites. So from the Bible story, the Bible activity, and then the crafts. And this would be a good fit for a smaller group of children. Here's another option here on the screen for early childhood if you wanted them to walk around the building to different rooms. This would be an ideal setup for if you wanted to have some subgroups going room to room. Here is an example of how you could set up your space for those early childhoods. It's very similar to what we saw earlier, but this is taking into account separate spaces for the early childhood kids. All right, so here we're going to start going over the different formats. And the first one we're going to start off with is an overview of the one-day VBS program. This could be very ideal for a Saturday, and the kids will go through the whole VBS program start to finish in one day. This could be a really great idea for a community outreach event as well. If you're struggling to find volunteers for 5 full weekdays, this could be a great way to recruit the volunteers you need. It's a one-day commitment, so that could open up the people who could possibly help out a great deal. We would recommend using elementary materials and then prioritizing all of the 5 storytelling lessons and the Bible activities, the Bible challenges. Some things to consider with this model is that it could be a really long day for younger children, but it has at the same time really great potential to be a whole family event. You can have parents come and help out with volunteering and have kids of all ages participate. Here is a recommended morning schedule. Here are a few things to note, is that for all the meals throughout the day, you can incorporate the VBS snacks into them. So if you have a breakfast, or on the schedule here, you see that we have a lunch scheduled. So you can use those VBS snacks. With the opening music, I would recommend focusing on the overarching theme songs. You're just not going to have time to get into all the VBS songs. I would recommend emphasizing and practicing the take-home points, getting that repetition going, and then make sure to also introduce the mission project in that opening session. Another things to consideration is you're just going to probably need to combine some things, so possibly the Bible activity and the storytelling. And for those new to CPH, storytelling is what it sounds like, just the time where kids act out the day's Bible story. And the Bible challenge is a station where we focus mainly on the Bible memory verse for that day. So kids get in their Bibles while also doing some fun activities such as science experiments for this year. Something to consider during lunchtime would be an activity kids can do once they finish their meal. You could even play the song action videos in the background and have kids practicing those. Looking at the afternoon schedule, there's a lot more opportunities to dig into the storytelling lessons and the Bible challenges. There's also plenty of time for games, music, and then movie time, dinner, and then you can conclude the day with a family night celebration. For the movie time here, we were imagining playing the theme videos in a marathon fashion, maybe with some VBS snacks, depending on your church. And then for the conclusion of the day, you could have an event where you have all the parents who may not have volunteered come and have a family night celebration. And this would just be a really great opportunity for parents to learn about their child's day and hear the songs and stories. You can even include the broader church congregation and have them hear what the kids were doing that day and have it be an event where the whole church can kind of come together, and including meeting any new people that came to VBS. The next option we're going to look at is the weekend retreat, and this is a really cool option. So it's going to split the programming up between Friday evening, all day Saturday, and then Sunday morning. So you could hold this at your church facility or a camp or retreat setting. I would recommend, once again, using the elementary materials and then prioritizing the storytelling and the Bible challenge. You can see here, you can creatively schedule those craft, snack, and game activities in order to fit any other free time activities you would like to have at your church or that camp setting. Some camp or retreat settings may have some great activities that would really complement a weekend retreat format. There will be a lot of freedom to kind of craft this retreat into what you would want it to look like, with the main components of VBS kind of serving as the framework. Here's a recommended schedule for Friday evening. So I'd recommend scheduling some time for everyone to get there and get situated before you kick off the evening with worship. And then you could dive right into the first lesson with a storytelling and Bible challenge, close with some music, and then wrap up the night with the VBS themed snack. For the opening service, you will use the opening materials, and for the music at 8 p.m., you can use the closing materials. For the Saturday morning, this is going to look similar to the one-day schedule. So you can provide breakfast and maybe include another VBS snack. Maybe you could incorporate a brief morning devotional, and then you would include the lesson 2 and 3 storytelling and Bible challenges with a snack and games in between, leading up to a lunch around noon. And then for the opening and closing services, you would use the corresponding opening and closing materials. So this is what the afternoon and evening could look like, jumping right back into it with a craft, leading into games, a mission project activity. So here, this is one of the best parts about the weekend retreat in my perspective. It's a really great opportunity, with it being a longer format, for you to have a lot of freedom with what you would want to do with your mission project. So you could connect with a local organization in your community and do something through them, or you could create care packages for homeless people, or buy books or Bibles and distribute them to people around your church neighborhood. So there's a lot of flexibility with what you can do here because of just the broader amount of time you have throughout Saturday. So after that mission project activity, you'll have a snack and a few hours of free time leading into dinner. The night concludes with the worship time with music, some lesson 4 storytelling and Bible challenge, and then a VBS snack before they are sent home or they get ready for bed. If you're doing this off-site, you could even provide an activity for parents, such as a Bible study or a fellowship event after the kids go to bed. So it could be a great opportunity for the parents to connect and recap the day. This is what your Sunday morning could look like. Start the morning off at 8 and also pack up and clean up for the day. You can make sure to have everyone helping out to make that as smooth as possible. You could finish with lesson 5, and then if you're feeling really ambitious, you can do also that last craft before closing music and departing for the end of the weekend. So this is a real special format because of the bonding opportunities that can take place when families and children step out of their normal rhythms and routines and spend some extended time together. All right, so now we're going to look at the day camp VBS. So this is very similar to the traditional base site 5-day model, but extended all day, so not just 9 to noon. So it would be really simple to add some non-VBS materials or additional summer camp activities into this format. This format gives you a lot of flexibility to craft a unique experience for your kids. For this, likewise, I would recommend using the elementary materials. So something cool that you could do is you could have a kickoff event for families to gather and connect before the VBS gets rolling. That'd be a great way to include parents and even, once again, the larger church community into the younger generation's activities, and then get a glimpse into what they're going to be learning throughout the week. So if you're out in the wilderness and want to prepare music ahead of time, CPH provides scores with guitar chords and reproducible lyric sheets. Day Camp VBS allows you to add those classic camp activities into your VBS programming without watering down or minimizing the richness of the VBS curriculum and including all the storytelling lessons. All right, so here is a recommended morning schedule for your Day Camp VBS. So as the kids are arriving, you can easily have a icebreaker planned just to get them all situated. You'll start off with the opening, leading into the Bible storytelling and challenges, maybe some skits, leading into some snacks time. You can have some small group activities, either if that's going through the lesson or more of a on-the-feet type activity. You can close out that time with music and do games right before you take a break at noon for lunch. So for the afternoon, after lunch, you can give the kids maybe 30 minutes or so of free time, followed by an all camp activity at 1. So here with this all camp activity, you can really get creative. You could have maybe an ongoing competition that picks up where you left off the day before with different teams that runs through the entire week. You could do water activities, something that really gets all the kids together and having fun. After that activity, you can move into some music time, followed by crafts. Something I would recommend is having at one point during the day, splitting up the children into some groups, maybe partners or maybe groups of 3, maybe with a friend or with an older student, for them just to pray together. This helps incorporate prayer into the daily rhythm of their day camp experience and helps them grow in relationship with their peers as well. It also reinforces that no matter what kind of day they're having, they can always go to the Lord in prayer. So then you'll end the day around 4 p.m. With the daily closing service around 4. All right, so now we're going to look at the mixed age groups format that I was talking about earlier. So this format would really be best used with those churches that have a lot of smaller age groups or class sizes, or just not a lot of children in general. So it makes sense to combine your children. So in this model, you'll mix all those kids together. So there's a lot of great opportunities for mentorship with this model. It gives the older students an opportunity to grow in leadership skills too. And if you're a smaller church, you can simply use the same rotation site schedules that we talked about earlier with the base model format. And this could also be a really fun way to keep siblings together if that's something that parents in your congregation are interested in. Once again, I would recommend using the elementary leaflets. With those, our editor was careful to make sure that the material included in that could be also used for younger children. So this format at the same time would be really convenient for recruiting volunteers for just a mixed group. So here is a recommended schedule for this format. And you see there on the right, there's a map outlining how you could utilize your space. So again, you could keep the same 5 sites and then have those groups rotating along with the schedule. So this looks very similar to the format we were looking at earlier, just you would have all your kids together. All right, so looking at the last format that we're going to look at today, I think this one has a lot of strengths. We consider this a summer Sunday school option. So this one is essentially just holding your VBS over the summer in your regular Sunday school slot with your children. So this would make for about 10 to 13 weeks of programming. And then included in this, you could have a special family celebration at the end of the summer as well. And this would work for early childhood and elementary students. So here's an example of what this could look like for your church. You could essentially split up each lesson into 2 weeks, A and B weeks. So this, like I mentioned, it would be at least 10 weeks minimum of programming. So for the first week, week A, you would include the opening, the storytelling, the snacks, and then the closing video. And then for the second week, week B, you would include the music, the Bible challenge, or any type of Bible or activity that you want to include in there, and crafts. So with that recommended schedule, you could obviously make some tweaks based on the needs of your kids in church. But the overarching concept for this format is taking the rich VBS curriculum and working it through the summer at your church. And here are some suggestions for some additional week of programming. You could have a games week where you're just playing those VBS games maybe one Sunday morning. You could have a theme video marathon day where you play all the videos. You could include some snacks, and that would be a fun way to watch movies and get children excited. Or you could have a special closing program day for parents and kids. And another idea is that one of those first two options, the games or the video, would be an ideal option to fit that in maybe during a July 4th weekend when a lot of families are going to be out of town. So that way the kids aren't missing a lesson content that week. And like other formats, this one also has a lot of flexibility for your volunteers. So they can serve maybe once a month or every other week, or whatever your needs are for your church. It's a lot less demanding than having 20 volunteers Monday through Friday, all morning or all day. So this is a great option if you don't have a lot of volunteers on hand. All right, so that covers all the formats that I wanted to kind of talk through today. So I'll leave a minute or two if you guys have any questions. In a minute here, I will put my email back up on the screen. You can write that down if you wanted to email me with any of your questions. I will be following up with the recording of this and then with my email as well if you wanted to respond to that as well. All right, well, I don't see any questions coming in. Like I said, here's my information. Look out for that email from me. You'll have this recording, so if you want to send that along to any volunteers or your pastor, or so you guys can start to think through what format might be best for you if you're looking to mix it up this year. Thank you very much for attending, and let me know if I can help in any way. Thank you for your time.